Hello. How's everyone doing tonight? Me and Adam are going to talk this Rockets preview for Game 3, and if you notice I have my Starbucks because it's going to
be a late night.
It's going to be really late, so I hope you guys are staying up to watch it. Should be a good matchup, and of course I think we're finally going to see. My prediction is the Jazz play some better basketball.
Yeah, the Jazz, not really sure why they thought the defensive philosophy that they brought to games 1 and 2 was going to work.
Yeah.
Because they basically begged the best player in the league to tear them apart, which he gladly did. And he
opened up shots for
Yeah.
other good role players like PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon.
Yeah, he hasn't had to go crazy. He hadn't had to go for a 40-point night. Hadn't had to take 30 shots. Hasn't had to launch 15 three-pointers in a game because the shooters are wide open. And unlike the Jazz shooters who continue to miss over and over and over again, the Rockets made way too many shots for the Jazz even to stay competitive.
So what do you predict they will do differently defensively?
Well, if Rubio continues to defend James Harden, it'll look a lot more like it did in Game 2, where at least he tried to stay in front of him, which clearly he can't do. I don't know if Harden will get a chance to shimmy again, which will set the
hopefully he'll
national
make
narrative
it this
again.
next time.
Yeah, I mean, he shimmies, he misses a shot, and that's still all anyone can talk about, because there's nothing good to talk about this series, because it's been the least competitive series in the league, and it just shows the gap. Even though this is a 50-win team and a 53-win team, the Rockets have just been locked in, as James likes to say, for about 2 months now defensively, and holding the Jazz to 90 and 98 points. It's been a no contest.
Now, they have been locked in defensively, and this is not to take away from anything they have done on defense because they've been playing great, but even the guys said themselves at practice, they said Game 2 at least, they didn't play as well as they wanted to on defense, and they admit that things could have gone a little bit differently had the Jazz made all the open shots they missed. I mean, they were 8 for 38 from the three-point line, and that's not going to probably happen again. I mean, it could happen again.
It could happen again. I mean, it happened to the Thunder a couple times. The Spurs this afternoon couldn't make a single shot, but again, going back home, Joe Ingles has been a 0 in this series. I doubt that continues for a third game. And remember, the only game the Jazz won last season, he went off. He was left alone, which is the only thing you can't do, because he can't do anything else. If you leave him wide open, he might make that shot. If you make him dribble, he can't. He won't do anything against them, and they've done a great job of doing that. Obviously, we're here on Facebook Live, so we'll catch your comments and be happy to answer and interact with you as we go on, and we'll get you a little bit closer to the 9:30 tip-off.
I'm going to be trying to look for Eat 'em Up Cats, yay!
Always with the cats.
Go Bearcats. I know us Bearcats are diehard, but if you guys have any questions for us, we'll be looking and we'll answer those. But I'm predicting that the Rockets will I think they could sweep. I actually, for the first time, think, everyone's like, it's too hard to win 4 games in a row in a playoff series, especially 2 of them in Utah. But I think that for the first time, they possibly could sweep. But of course, if they do lose, it'll be one of these 2 out of Game 3 and 4. And I think it'll take everyone kind of having an off shooting night, which we have seen this season. So it is possible. Like if everyone has an off shooting night, James Harden included, then the Jazz could steal one. But I just don't see that happening. These guys are like so locked in. Like I don't know if you got that vibe from the practices you went to this week. They have their mind on something bigger. And even, who was it that said that? Was it Gobert who said that?
Gobert said we're playing way too soft, and if that continues, they're going to kick us in the backside again.
Well, that was a big quote he said, and everyone was asking the Rockets about that, and they said, well, we don't really care what he has to say. But I think it was him or Rubio recently said, they're playing, I can tell there's something different. They're playing for something more. They're playing like a championship team. And I agree, and it's funny to look back at how this season started and how different it's
insane.
Just their mindset, the new guys they have that are making this team much different, and I think it's exciting to see what they really could do.
They've won 44 of 59 games since that 11-14 start. They've only lost 15 times since they lost 14 of the first 25. That includes these 2 Utah games. And remember, last year they went to Utah. It was a game apiece. That second game was the one Utah won here, and then the Rockets won twice there, both of them by double figures. I was there in Utah for those games, and it is a tough atmosphere. When the Jazz make any shot, regardless of what the situation is in the game, they are ready to go crazy. They're ready to, okay, let's make it a 5-0 run. Let's make it a 10-2 run. They really get on board quickly.
And game of runs.
Yeah. What the Rockets did in Houston is what they will want to do there more than anything else. Just keep the crowd out of the game. Build a lead, keep the lead.
And keep other players out of the game, because we're seeing in the other playoff series, guys are getting tossed left and right. I have 3 guys gotten ejected today, or is there more than that?
Today, let's see. Well, yes, DeRozan got ejected, but it wasn't for fighting.
But still, so the Rockets need to not follow that trend with the rest of the NBA, and don't let another player on the other team take one of your guys out by getting angry. And I know that happens, and it hasn't happened in these first 2 games because it hasn't even been close, but that could happen if this is a close game, especially in Utah, because those fans, weren't those the fans that were getting after Westbrook this season?
Some of them.
Some of them. I'm just grouping them all together, but you get what I'm saying. So that's another interesting note, because these games today have been crazy.
Yeah, what Lainey was talking about, she showed you at 6 o'clock. We'll show you a little bit more of it at 10 o'clock, because the way it went down, it was after a hard foul from Joel Embiid in the Philadelphia game, playing against the Nets, and Jared Dudley is a player that Lainey's talking about. According to Joel Embiid, he's a nobody, which is what he said after the game. That's actually what you're kind of worried about, is a player who is a non-factor.
Taking out,
So Embiid kind of stepped away from the fray as Jimmy Butler pushed Dudley after Dudley pushed Embiid. And the NBA is going to be really upset about this one, because it spilled into the crowd. It spilled into the fans.
The whole court side, was it on the base? Yeah, it was on the baseline. That whole court side, those rows on the baseline. They all, I mean, you saw one guy pick up his son, and he started running, because he has his little 3-year-old son with him, and he's like, oh my gosh, let me get out of the way of these giant guys. But
the other ejection today, she mentioned DeRozan. We're going to show you that one too, because that involves everybody's favorite referee, Scott Foster. I don't want to tell you anything more than that, except Foster and DeRozan, and there was an ejection. You'll have to watch coming up at 10 o'clock, and again, obviously, we'll have some early highlights of the Rockets game, but winning 2 games in a row in Utah obviously can be done. That's what they just did, and that's what makes this game so important. You keep the other team from gaining any confidence. That was the other thing I know both of us heard this week from the Jazz as much as the Rockets. The Rockets wouldn't say the Jazz weren't playing with confidence, but the Jazz kind of acknowledged it after Game 2 and post-game, and then in some of their interviews back in Utah, they kind of took the life out of them during those games.
I noticed even after Game 1, I was surprised, because I went to do the interviews after Game 1 the following day. They had availability, and I didn't feel that they were fired up to come back and make a change Game 2. They kind of seem, because when you get beat that bad, you're kind of like, oh man, what can we really change to keep up with these guys? And that's the vibe I got from them. I'm sure being back at home will bring a lot more life into them, and we'll see something a little different. Hopefully, at least a closer game, just for our sake of watching it.
Yeah. One thing that Donovan Mitchell said yesterday, which was pretty interesting. He said, if you notice, we were down by 20 after the first quarter, and we lost by 20. So you look at that, and we obviously did some good things. That's one way to look at it. I don't think too many teams look at it that way, is when they're down 2-0.
Yeah.
The first game I actually thought would be a better way for the Jazz to consider it, because at the beginning of the third quarter, they made that mini run. We're down 5. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, they were still only down 10 until it turned into a 32-point blowout.
Talking about Game 1, yeah.
They weren't completely overmatched for the entire Game 1. They just couldn't ever get over the hump. They could never take the lead. There were no lead changes in Game 2. That's what the Rockets would love to see happen here. Get the lead, take the lead, build on the lead, and never let the Jazz back into the game. Just kill their confidence.
Get out to that fast start, and then they've even mentioned third quarters they want to come out stronger. After Game 1, the Rockets mentioned that's been, PJ Tucker is the one who kind of keeps saying that it's been an issue of theirs all season long after halftime, and Mike D'Antoni kind of downplayed it and said, well, if you look at a lot of teams in the league, that's what happens after halftime. But I think that's the difference between the Rockets defensively this season compared to other seasons, is that when teams do get on a run, they are able to settle in and stop it, make stops, whereas before it could get out of hand. But I think this year the team does have enough strong defensive players, and they're playing so much better that they can, even if the other team goes on a run, they can kind of shut it down before it gets too out of hand.
And I think last year in Utah, something that could have happened, it didn't, was foul trouble. In Utah, getting in a situation where you've got to make different rotation changes because of fouls. The Rockets are pretty insulated from that with all the depth that they have now. Hopefully it won't be an issue. I think Clint Capella, just like last year against Utah, against Gobert, and again, it's not so much their one-on-one matchup, but he's doing so many good things for Houston defensively, protecting the basket, working that pick and roll so well. The Jazz are basically making Gobert ineffective by everybody else just funneling everything to him, and he has no help. So James just reads the play. You want to come get me?
Yeah.
I'll throw it up over your head. You don't want to come get me? I drop in the floater.
Yeah, and that's what James says all the time. Him and Chris Paul say this a lot. Well, number one, they say we're just going to hoop. They say that a lot.
Nobody says it more than Chris Paul.
But we're just going to hoop. But they also say we're taking what the defense gives us, and that's all James is doing, and it's so easy for him because he can do anything. That's why he's the best offensive player in the league. So if they come all the way out to defend him once he gets basically past half court, then okay, well I'm going to take it in. He's fine. He can do whatever, and that opens up everything else for everyone else. If he doesn't have a bucket there, he kicks it out to PJ Tucker in the corner. That's a 3 right there.
Yeah, Tucker had a stretch in Game 1 where he made 3 shots.